instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
Actually, later on in the show, I want to talk about areas we can take, get on the offensive. I feel like we're playing defense too often, and I actually think gun rights is one of the areas that we can make some serious wins, whether it's talking to the LGBTQ community, talking to the African American community, making the case that nonviolent convicted felons should have their gun rights restored, stuff like that. I think we could actually make some serious inroads on the gun front. And I agree with everything you just said, but there's plenty of time to agree later on in the show. I actually want to start on probably the only thing either of us will say on the show today that we disagree with. And that's the $1 million question that a lot of people have been debating. And obviously this is not a debate show. We're just a couple dudes having a conversation. But a lot of people are debating this, and people will continue to, obviously. And that's the $1 million question. Should libertarians join the LP, or should they join the Republican Party and attempt to transform the GOP from the inside out? And personally, I firmly am on the libertarians join the GOP side. I'm a registered Republican. I'm actually a former elected Republican, and I'm also a pretty radical libertarian. So I think this is probably the only case that I'm guessing you're going to disagree with me here.
Believe it or not, Brady, I don't actually disagree so much as I look at it as it has to be a tactical approach, right?
Right.
So, for example, let's look at Kentucky, right? Great state of Kentucky, where we have one of the best members of Congress and one congressional representative, Thomas Massie, in the House, right?
Yep.
So if we were in Thomas Massie's district, I would absolutely discourage any big L libertarian from running in that office. Why? Because what are you doing? We're talking about, in political science, there's an idea of what's called strategic voting, right? And in strategic voting, there's two things you're looking for in what you're measuring. Number one is the value you will get as the voter in the feeling of voting for the candidate that you most want. The other thing you're looking for is the actual outcome, right? In terms of policy from the candidate that actually wins. And you can assign a numerical value to that, and based on what policies are the most important to you and where those candidates stand. And I think you would find, by and large, folks in the liberty movement would look at somebody like a Thomas Massie, and they would probably be on board 90+% of what Thomas Massie has to bring to the table. Now, yes, we could get a candidate that's 95%, in camp, or even 99% in camp with libertarian ideas. But then you look at what's the alternative, and you might have a candidate that gives you 20%. Now, if you were to look at the net difference between, Thomas Massie at 90% and that candidate at 20%, well, you're going to have a 70% more of a positive with having Thomas Massie in office than otherwise. And we start to look at, instead of, Thomas Massie versus the alternative, which I hate the lesser of two evils argument, because they say, well, you still vote for the GOP, you're still voting for the lesser of two evils. I say,
real quick, I'm fine. It's weird. And I'm fine with that argument. I'm fine with the lesser of two evils. I think in essence the state is evil. Government itself not great. So I don't know. I've never voted once in my life where I wasn't looking at it in a lesser of two evils kind of context. Even before my libertarian days, it's not like when I was just like a mainstream, Republican, like it's not like I looked at any Republican candidate I voted for and was like, oh yeah, I'm just stoked about this guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think we're always going to be dealing with the lesser of two evils argument. And I don't necessarily think, at least as it sits right now, that that's a bad thing that somebody would make a decision like that.
Which is what I say to libertarians. Well, all right, if that's going to be the case, a lot of Americans out there are in the lesser of two evils camp, then let's pick the actual lesser of two evils argument where it actually applies. So I look at states where, Shane Hazel, I think he played a great role as a spoiler in a state like Georgia between the lesser of two evils, which quite literally are within, 5% difference points in actual philosophies. And that's something that you are going to see more of. And I think the role for libertarians is going to be twofold. Number one, from a national perspective, to keep the other two major parties in line in terms of the specific areas where libertarians can pull away from their base. So, for example, if you're talking to folks on the left, you're probably going to look at more civil liberties, war on drugs, ending the war and terror, so on and so forth. and ending overseas interventions. And then on the right, you're going to talk more about your fiscal policies, focusing more on your traditional, fiscal conservative, or your Rothbardian economics, Austrian economics, even Chicago economics, right? That's where you're going to force the issue there. Now, you look at representatives like Dave Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. If you were to look at them from a true strategic voting perspective versus their Democratic candidates, unfortunately, when you're looking at that policy one, right, and that's the one that's the sticky one, because that's the one you can actually refer to actual voting and the ramifications of said voting from policy versus just that kind of intrinsic feel good that you get when you vote. So in this kind of case, right, you look at the Kelly Loeffler, who maybe she was at 40% of the Libertarian positive, the positive win for the Libertarian to vote, and then the Democratic candidate maybe gives them 35%. So you're only fiddling with around 10% of difference in terms of what your percentage points.
Yeah, I may push back on those percentages a little bit. If you're looking at an avowed Marxist, in Raphael Warnock, who's the new Democratic senator from Georgia, I think I don't think it's that. I understand what you mean. I'm not praising Kelly Loeffler by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the gap in terms of their liberty score is a little bit more dramatic.
Well, yeah, no. Well, that's why it goes in two parts, right? So then it goes to the other part, and that's the first part. What do you get as the voter from that intrinsic, that one value, that aspect that's hard to actually put a finite number on? And as a sales guy, a sales executive, I'm looking for KPIs I can effectively measure, and unfortunately, you can't really effectively measure that value that your average voter is going to bring into the voting booth with that feeling, right? And we see that with Trump. Trump would have that feeling of a lot of people. They just vote for him because he was Trump, for better or for worse.
Right.
And it was hard to put that number on that. So what I would say is, to your point, right, you're right that you wouldn't want the avowed Marxist over a Kelly Loeffler. But now to the Libertarian point, well, now in Georgia, if you're running a candidate again, well, you know what? Maybe you should make sure that the candidate doesn't suck. Maybe the candidate should actually, instead of just talking about the ideas of, the free markets or the ideas of civil liberties, or whatever it may be, right? Instead of just talking about those, now you actually need to get a candidate who's going to actually stand up for those values and fight for them. And we see this, and I bring this up because I was part of the 2010, Tea Party movement back with the GOP, and I worked on many campaigns, both from a state level as well as a federal level. And with that, you see a lot of candidates who ran in 2010, 2012, and 2014 on the Tea Party wave of this, basically it was a constitutionalist, libertarian, small L libertarian movement.
Right.
And you ended up seeing folks like, Marco Rubio, of all people, run as a libertarian. I mean, my goodness, man, I have in my office here, I have a Marco Rubio water bottle, and it says, "Stay thirsty for liberty." And he signed on it. And I laughed because...
Oh, no.
Right? But he ran on this whole idea of liberty. So it's easy for the lip service. Then it comes down to actually, holding those candidates accountable. So to your point, right, is the GOP the most feasible means on a national level to get liberty into action? Absolutely. I will not at all disagree with that. But there is a role for the LP, and then the LP's role, I'd say, is to hold those parties accountable. And if we're talking, and again, this is federal level, right? When we break it down to a more state perspective or even a local perspective, I'd say your LP has more of a role, especially in like nonpartisan elections. Goodness, if you're a libertarian and you have a nice construction company and you're a well thought of person in your community, and it's a nonpartisan run for mayor, run for mayor,
city council, judge. If you're a lawyer, if you're a libertarian leaning lawyer that wants to make a difference,
they'll say, what's your registered position again? And you'll say a libertarian. They'll say a what? And then that gives you a chance to again show, hey, listen, I was this weird thing you'd never heard of, but you knew me. You knew my values as a member of the community and as a business owner and as a thought leader. And now you're seeing the positive ramifications of a libertarian policy, right? And that's where we're going to be able to win, man. It's building those stories, building that resume of libertarian success stories, because we always get picked on, right? Go to Somalia. Where's your libertarian country, right? Let's be real. They kind of have a point. I mean, I don't mean to pick on them, but Justin Amash had somebody on Twitter, and they said, name a libertarian country. And he said, the United States of America. And I said, well, that doesn't seem like it's too much of a glowing endorsement when you look at where we are right now in 2021.
Right.
Because we're, how many trillions of dollars in debt, and we're on the precipice of losing our liberties overnight. So, yeah, man, I think we do have a chance to reach people. I think the Libertarian Party does have a chance to reach people, but it's not exclusively through one channel or the other. I think it has to be a very calculated, multi-pronged effort to make sure we're not wasting our time, we're not wasting our energy, and really make sure we're focusing on where we can actually put liberty into action and make liberty win.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.